Bonjour et bienvenue à Muppetsational, le podcast Muppet Show, animé par toi, un homme fan de Muppet. Rejoignez-nous chaque semaine pour plonger dans un épisode de l'émission de variété classique de Jim Henson. Des sommets enfants disponibles sur Disney+. Cette semaine, c'est la saison 1, épisode 9, mettant en vedette les Français et séduction Charles Aznavour. Il est temps de commencer les choses sur le plan chronologique, exploratoire, conversationnel, Muppetsational!
Was that meant to be French?
What do you mean meant to be French? It was French. Google Translate said it was French.
I'm going to apologise up the top to anybody who actually speaks French who's listening. Lewis, that was incredible. That was oh no, I can't even say it.
Incredible.
Yeah, something like that.
C'est bon.
C'est bon.
C'est bon.
Le chic, c'est la vie. I thought of this 10 minutes before we came on to record, so I quickly chucked it into Google Translate. And then Peter heard me trying to say it. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm speaking French. And he's like, that is not. So full disclosure, some of those words were written down phonetically because Peter was like, I don't know what running jump you're doing to these words, but this... I felt like I was working at Disneyland Paris. Bonjour et bienvenue à Space Mountain.
Wow.
It was very good, Lewis. Very good. I have not got my broadcast information in French, so I'm sorry about that.
That's probably for the best, and that's all we're getting. But look, just showing that we are très chic, international, European, despite what 51% of our country wants otherwise. So, anyway, welcome everybody. I am Lewis. Je m'appelle Lewis.
I can't even say it. Je m'appelle Jade.
Je m'appelle Emma.
Bonjour!
Bonjour, ça va?
Good day. How is your family?
Wow, I feel like we've just gone completely crazy.
This is loopier than the episode we're talking about, which is saying something for the Muppet Show, I think.
Definitely.
Jade, why don't you give us get us back on track and give us some production information?
I'll get us back on track. So this episode was originally broadcast on the 28th of November 1976. The production code lists it as the 9th episode made, and therefore Disney Plus have included it as episode 9. It was written by the same group that we've seen with the other episodes since the pilot episodes, so Jack Burns, Mark London, Jim Henson and Jerry Jewell, and this one was also directed by Peter Harris. Emma, please enlighten us. Please give us some background info on Charles Aznavour, who was a man I did not know at all before watching this episode.
No, neither did I. So yeah, Charles Aznavour was a singer, a composer and a songwriter, and he sung in French and in German, Italian, Spanish, English and in Armenian. Wow. And he also was a songwriter for Edith Piaf, which is quite interesting.
Ooh,
and
that's cool.
He wrote the song She, you know, the one that they use in Notting Hill. She may be the reason. That one.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh
so he's
my
pretty
God.
prolific. And also I read that he did a bit in Las Vegas. He toured a bit with Liza Minnelli, apparently. So, yeah, he's had quite an illustrious career.
Wow.
That's very cool.
That's amazing. Did anybody else, I don't know if you guys felt the same, I had a slight bit of trepidation going into this episode, and I don't know why. Just because I saw his name, and I didn't really know who it was, and I saw it was kind of like an older guy, and I was like, oh, I don't know what the vibe of this episode is going to be. It ended up being a total joy.
Oh, see, I think we might be disagreeing a little bit on this.
Oh, really?
There were parts of it that I did enjoy, don't get me wrong, and obviously we'll talk about each little bit in turn. I suppose like two of his numbers, especially his main two big numbers, that I I don't know, I just found them a bit disappointing.
I'm so surprised. I totally loved this episode.
Well, I mean, that's good. It's good that we've got something to talk about, because I honestly came away and was like, I was a bit, not worried, because we'll always find things to talk about, but I was a bit like, oh, I just found it a bit meh. The whole, not... Lewis, you're an Aznavourian.
Apparently, I don't know. It's the Francophile in me. I don't know.
Emma, how did you feel?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as you, Jade. I did feel like it was quite a middling episode. Like, there were good bits, but yeah, I felt there wasn't a lot of excitement or kind of like Muppety joy in some of the sketches and songs. But I have to say, I did enjoy our sort of little first song, I Feel Pretty. I thought that was quite a bizarre little number, but quite funny. And then the fact that Beautiful Day Monster comes in at the end and he's like, I love you. And it's like, aww. But it was a bit weird.
See, I loved it. Even before we got to I Feel Pretty, I really liked the vibe that this episode had. Like, even Kermit's little introduction at the beginning, and Fozzie was like peeking out of the curtain because he wanted to check the house, and I was like, that's a bit of characterization. That's not like a bad little pun or joke happening. And I was like, oh, I don't know, this vibe feels slightly different and interesting for me. And then we went into I Feel Pretty, and I totally loved it. It's a song from West Side Story. It's a classic. It seems strange they didn't use it on the Rita Moreno episode, but that's by the by. But it was that thing I'm always asking for, where it's like, oh, it's a song, but it's given a Muppety twist. And it was brilliant. It was lovely. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well, I must say. And I was looking it up, and it said that apparently they originally did it on Sesame Street with different Muppets. So it was sort of a rejig of a Sesame Street sketch with, I think, slightly more monstery Muppets. But the other thing I saw about it, which I thought was really cool, was that Fran Brill, who was the first female puppeteer that Henson hired other than Jane Henson, she did the start of the song, and I thought it was really clever how she, when like you took the nose off, she became really nasally, and then with all of the different changes to the eyes and the hair and everything, she was sort of changing her voice, you know, getting more and more kind of monstery and crazy. But also something I thought was really, really amazing was when it went to that final purple furry crazy Muppet, that was Jim Henson at the end with the really, really deep voice. So I thought,
brilliant.
I thought that was a really, really clever, I suppose, sort of switch up and way of doing it, was to actually have Fran Brill getting more and more deep and gruff and everything, but then to finally go to Jim doing an actual proper manly gruff voice. And it really worked, and it was so seamless. And I'm with you, Lewis. Like, I watched it with my partner Rich, and he said it was pretty petrifying, which I think he wasn't wrong. It was quite scary to see that Muppet. It was a lot of fun as well, and it was totally in keeping with the sort of, exactly as you said, Muppet take on a classic song. It worked for me.
It reminded me a bit of All of Me, but I felt this was like so much better because it even integrated the bits where who's that pretty girl in that mirror there? What mirror? Where? That's in the song. That's actually in I Feel Pretty. And they found a comic take on that. It kind of felt a bit drag, which sounds funny to say considering what's coming later in this episode, but taking a song, a classic song from a musical, and finding a humorous, subversive, and potentially slightly frightening twist to it. You know, it felt quite queer in a way. And the way that, you know, this conventionally beautiful female Muppet then became this gruff, sort of furry, green, spiky haired Muppet, and then she's still found beautiful at the end by the other Muppet that comes in. I don't know, it had a really good beginning, middle and end, and it was just really funny, and actually took the joke further of the taking on and off of the different body parts than All of Me did. I just loved it, and it set me up for this episode, to be honest. Emma, what did you think?
Yeah, no, I thought it was quite clever, especially like you say, when it went from like nose off and then nose on, and it like the Muppet obviously changed and like developed into the newer Muppet. So yeah, no, I.
She sounded like an actress who plays like Glinda in Wicked when the nose came off. Do you know when she was like really high pitched and nasal?
Yeah, no, I thought it was really clever, and like you said, it was really lovely at the end when I think the Muppet monster is called Beautiful Day comes in, and he's like, "You look pretty," and it was like, oh,
yeah.
It was sweet.
It's a good message.
It was a good message, and I suppose in a way that's where you can tell it's maybe come from the Sesame Street incarnation.
I just really thought it was great. I thought it was lovely.
I agree with you, Lewis. I felt like it was actually quite a strong start to the episode, and also I was I was personally quite pleased when we went backstage and it was Gonzo who was having a runner, and also that he called out to Kermit immediately that he hadn't had any parts on the show recently, because, you know, that's something we have commented on a few times about how he's not been present. Yeah, I was just really pleased to have him in the runner. Now, I know you're probably going to complain about the fact that his runner was also with Scooter, but, you know, I quite enjoyed the runner. And I felt like it was a bit of a shame when some of the stuff to do with Gonzo went into the panel show discussion, which was a sketch that I didn't really enjoy very much at all this week. But actually the stuff that Gonzo was doing backstage, and the joke when Scooter said that he was going to get him to do the rock act, and Gonzo then just started hitting the rock and yelling, "Art! Art!" I watched the episode twice.
That was amazing. I loved that.
Yeah, and both times I was hysterical at that. That was absolutely comedy gold. I loved it. It's probably the funniest thing that Gonzo's done on the entire show so far. It was just hysterical. I don't know if this is probably not my favourite backstage runner that we've had. I feel like we have had some stronger ones, but I was glad that this one didn't involve Fozzie being weak or worried or whatever. You know, there was only, I think, one reference to Scooter's uncle. So it felt like, again, we were getting a bit more character development of a character who we know is going to change quite a bit in the coming episodes and seasons. Yeah, what did you both make of it?
I really enjoyed it, actually. Like you said, Jade, it was really nice to see a bit of character development for Gonzo, and also just to see Gonzo and let him have a bit more of a play and a bit more of an interaction. And yeah, I just loved it when he was like, "I am an artist," and like the rock art. That was just absolutely classic.
Emma, what did you think of Kermit's characterization in this bit?
I don't know. I think he was a little bit mean, wasn't he? He was a bit like, he was quite sort of dismissive of Gonzo, I think. And also he was kind of like, yeah, well, you haven't been on because you haven't been very good. And I was just like, oh, Kermit. How could you say that?
It felt really harsh for Kermit. Like, it's funny, we talk about all of these characters kind of finding their grooves and developing. And it's funny how that Kermit doesn't feel like the right kind of Kermit. Like, he just feels, a bit more critical and aggressive, which we later on only get little flare-ups of, whereas this felt a bit more casually dismissive, which feels so strange coming from Kermit.
I think he feels like cynical. He feels like a sort of industry insider who's been there, seen it all, done it all, and is just like, oh my god, here's another person who thinks that they're an artiste and I can't be dealing with it. Whereas Kermit is very, very supportive and wants everyone to do well, you know, as the frog that we all grew up with anyway. I completely agree with that. He seems very just sort of dismissive and not the kind of manager that you think of Kermit as, really, I guess.
I've just got to shout out my favourite line from this first bit of the runner, which was Gonzo going, "I don't play to the masses." With just masses with like a Y after the M. Masses. I just thought it was very cute. I liked it. This plays into what I really appreciated again from this episode, was that the runner wasn't a bunch of bad puns or misunderstandings. It was all character development again. And it just felt a lot more involved, because we can keep the puns and the jokes and the wordplay on stage because it makes sense for them to be occurring there. And when we go backstage, it now feels like they're using backstage as us getting a peek behind the curtain, like us getting to know these individual Muppets and members of this troupe. It feels a lot more engaging and involving. Like I get pulled in a lot more as an audience member with that, rather than just having puns flying about everywhere, I find.
I feel like there was a little bit of punning with the fact that Gonzo was meant to take everything so literally. So it started with Kermit saying, I can lend you my ear for a minute. And Gonzo was like, what am I going to do with your ear? And then that was what carried on into the panel discussion, which was what I really didn't enjoy.
I wondered if maybe it was just because this runner didn't feature Fozzie Bear, who feels like such a I'm trying, waka waka. And maybe because those puns were coming out of Gonzo instead, and they felt more like the character is just taking it literally and not just like, oh, I'm throwing back a bad pun. It worked better for me this week, whereas I think had that been Fozzie, I probably would have found it quite grating.
Yeah. No, and I suppose in a way, even though it's not the Gonzo character that we know, actually that is part of the character development that they were doing at that time, that Gonzo's this innocent, idiotic Gonzo, because we don't know what Gonzo is.
He's a whatever.
Who takes everything literally. Like, that's part of his character at this moment, isn't it? Even if that's not the character he ends up becoming.
Now, a few characters I did find very alarming were the backing dancers for Charles's first number. We didn't have...
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god. It was... They've been multiplying the Muppet Men, and now they've got Muppet women, and they're freaking terrifying.
Oh, I know. I was watching it and I kind of, like you say, I don't particularly like the Muppet mutation men or whatever they're meant to be, Muppetoids. And then the women, oh my god, their faces, they're so freaky.
They were so alarming.
Super freaky and so alarming. Like, it's a really sweet song. It's actually one of Charles's songs that him and Mildred are dancing to. I thought they were quite sweet. Mildred made me laugh because I feel like she was totally going for it, because normally she's paired up with George,
yes,
she on the dance spots, and she was like, this is my chance.
I thought exactly the same.
Yeah, I thought she was literally just like loving it with Charles. But then the humanoid, Muppetoid, whatever they were just super, super freaky. I think it would have worked if they had kind of like more of the normal like Muppet crew dancing in pairs. It just, and the faces, especially of like the women ones, oof, they were not good.
They didn't have a mouth.
When those two women Muppets came over and got either side of Charles's arm, I was like, Charles, you're in danger, girl. Like, get out of there. Like, they're going to eat you or take your mouth because they don't have one.
I know, like with the men, I think because they had moustaches, they didn't look that bad, but the women with no mouths, it was just like, ooh, no.
I didn't understand why they didn't have mouths. They look so weird. And also their eyes were basically in their big 70s fringes. So most of the time they just looked like blank foam heads with, you know, crazy wigs on the top.
They looked like
and also,
soft plush autons from Doctor Who. That's what they looked like. They were just very alarming.
I also just had a bit of a moment of realization of what it must be like for those performers with those heads on. And then I started to spiral thinking about what it must be like to put one of those Muppet heads on, and the fact that, like, you obviously can breathe and you must be able to see, but I just started, like, because it's not like a big Mickey Mouse head or something that you'd put on where you obviously have quite a lot of room between your face and Mickey's nose or whatever. Like, this is like a very tightly fitted foam head that essentially looks like it's like skin tight. I mean, it's like a helmet, isn't it? I started to properly, wasn't quite having palpitations, but they were starting to rise, and I was like, God, if these Muppets don't get off screen soon, I'm gonna freak out big time.
But yeah, despite their presence, I have to agree, Emma, Mildred and Charles's rapport together was utterly charming. And I did think when we went to the ballroom sketch later, you could visibly see that Mildred was pissed to be paired back with George after this marvellous 2.5-3 minutes that she just had with Charles. Why do all songs from like this period seem to have patter in them? What is it about old standards that need to have like 45 seconds where you just monologue to the audience? It's like all songs from that time.
I thought about that too. I was like, oh god, here we go with some little patter in the middle of this. But when I looked up the song, so it's called The Old Fashioned Way. Apparently, it was in the UK charts for 15 weeks, which back then, so this was obviously like an enormous smash of a song at the point that Charles Aznavour released it, because 15 weeks in the charts.
That's Umbrella. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, what a comparison.
But, I mean, I still enjoyed the number. Maybe because I felt like I was in danger somehow because of those backing dancer Muppets. But I did then have this heightened sense of enjoyment for what was happening in the foreground. I still really liked it, despite them.
I enjoyed Mildred. Like, I was glad that Mildred was there with her dress that I can only describe as looking like a picnic blanket. Or
something
just big and billowing, or
something that Penelope Keith would have worn on The Good Life, like
yeah,
her head
exactly.
poking over the fence, being like, "Good evening, Barbara." Yeah, good evening, Barbara. Good evening, Tom.
Yeah, it was very Margot Ledbetter.
I guess because the only thing that was really a twist on the song in a way was the fact that you had the humanoid Muppets and then Mildred, who they were still just sort of dancing in the old-fashioned way as the song goes. And I agree that there was some nice moments between Charles and Mildred, but I just found it a little bit bland. Like, there wasn't quite enough going on. I would have liked it if there'd been a bit more. Well, not that I wanted to see the humanoid Muppets
more
Muppets, but I suppose
more
if
humanoid
been a bit
Muppets.
More...
Just an entire.
Well, no, just the fact that, like, when they tried to steal him away and then he came back to her and everything, like, I feel like there could have been more interplay of that sort of nature where it was just riffing on it a bit more rather than it just essentially being.
I think if we'd had more of those
just a ballroom dance.
Yeah, but then I think if we'd had more of those humanoid Muppets trying to drag him away, then it would have fully had descended into horror movie territory rather than.
No, I don't. I'm categorically saying I do not want more humanoid Muppets. They are the last thing I want to see more of, especially those women ones. Like, oh my god. Not good.
Put one of those faces on and then looking at yourself in the mirror. I don't know, just
no, Lewis.
Or looking in the mirror and seeing one staring back at you. Just don't have nightmares.
What, like is that like a man or Muppet situation where one day you look in the mirror and you just see one of the humanoid Muppet faces looking back at you and you're like, it's happened. It's fully happened. I don't know what would be worse,
looking directly at you or standing just behind you.
No.
Jade looks really scared now.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Jade, look behind you.
There's nothing there. We're on Zoom. I can see.
Sibon.
Thank God. I think I was just fully freaked out by the Muppet men and ladies, to be honest, to fully appreciate anything else that was going on.
Fair enough. No one would hold that against you, to be fair.
Good. They better not.
Don't hold a Muppet man against you either. So spongy.
I quite enjoyed the little Statler and Waldorf runner this week with the French fries and the pig's tongue and the I don't get that. You didn't order any. And it was just it was quite I mean, they were short and sweet, but I enjoyed it when they showed up each time.
I loved it too. It made me hungry. Not for pig's tongue, but as soon as he said French fries, he's like, you didn't order any. I suddenly felt the disappointment you have when you don't order a good side dish. When when you're at a restaurant and you see what somebody else has ordered and you go, damn it, I should have got that instead.
I know, it's like when you order like the spring greens and the rice, then you're just like, I wish I had the French fries.
Look, Emma, that was one holiday and I was trying to maintain my waist. All right? That was 1 2-week holiday in Orlando, and I'd recently lost about 3 stone, and I didn't want to suddenly pile it back on just by having
one lot of French fries. I don't think that was going to make you put on 3 stone, Lewis. I mean,
it's a slippery slope, Jade. You don't know where it starts with just a small side portion of fries next to your salad, and then it just becomes like an entire rack of ribs at Tony Roma's. Okay?
I have to say, I mean, Florida, I probably spiraled. I had like Starbucks and Frappuccinos and everything, and I've not had those for years. So.
On account of your
Yes.
diabetes.
I was like, oh, look at the pretty Mickey Mouse cup. I will have one of those, please.
That's the problem. So then, just having to order
Salad.
Collard greens, which even then still have butter in them, but I don't know, somehow it feels like vaguely better. We are going off track. I also enjoyed Statler and Waldorf this
I'm
week.
sure Statler and Waldorf have had these issues too. You know, at some point they probably couldn't actually get out of their box because they'd eaten so much, and then they were like, oh, we'll get the salad.
I thought you meant dieting because I don't know if either of you have seen this online, but somebody posited this like theory that Statler and Waldorf are actually the true gay representation in the Muppets rather than Ernie and Bert, because they're two elderly catty men who have what seems to be season tickets to a box at the theatre, and they just all they do is insult people and just sort of like set up each other's zingers, and it was just kind of like, oh yeah, why do we think it's Bert and Ernie when it's clearly these two caustic old men? It's aspirational, frankly.
You'll get there one day.
Emma, I assume you must have been overjoyed at the return of the next sketch. It was Veterinarian's Hospital.
Yay!
Yay!
Dr. Bob was back.
Emma, what did you think?
Oh, it was so good to see. I was sad that it was so short, though, to be completely honest. It was really good. I love the fact that you kind of like started with Piggy and then she was following the line of like the oxygen, and there was like Rolf breathing in the oxygen, and then
Huffing the fumes.
It was the fumes, yeah. No, it was good. It had a good gag in it about his dead patient saying like 9 out of 10, and then he was like, well done, Dr. Bob, and he's like, but this is my 10th. You kind of had like the little pause and the cliffhanger, and then obviously you had voiceover guy again, and I loved their reactions to it.
It's so good.
And, you know, looking around and like, Miss Piggy in next week's episode, and she's like, what's happening? I love it. I love Dr. Bob. You know I do. I just wish it was a little bit longer.
They can't all be 40-minute Grey's Anatomy episodes, Emma. They have to be slightly more concise. We wouldn't get anything else in.
Oh, I know, but it was still fun to see them because we haven't seen them for so long.
I am slightly doubting Miss Piggy's nursing credentials when she went to check for a pulse and put her ear to the gentleman's ankle. It's like,
I loved that. It made me laugh so hard. It reminded me of Scuttle in The Little Mermaid. You know, when he lifts up Eric's foot to his ear and I think is like checking for a heartbeat, and it's like, no, there's no heartbeat. He's a goner. I was like, oh, Piggy. You went to the same school as Scuttle for your medical training. Congratulations.
It's what they call in The Simpsons Hollywood Upstairs Medical College, which is where Dr. Nick Riviera went to. Janice's voice is slowly seeming to transform into the Janice we recognise. We've lost the British inflection, but we haven't quite got to, who was that strange blue creature? Yeah, we're sort of somewhere edging towards. My favourite Janice bit was just when she had to flick her hair out of her face because she got some in her mouth and she was just flailing from side to side.
I thought that was really funny, not least because I was obviously like, whoever was puppeting her was like, oh no, I can't leave that strand of yellow. I need to like, flick it away. It was very good.
I always sort of forget that they must obviously have monitors clearly in view for themselves. It's not like going to a Punch and Judy show, do you know what I mean, where you're just doing the little gestures and you just know what your hands are doing. They're both doing that, but also fully watching it at the same time, which I suppose because it's more complex puppetry is more necessary than a seaside Punch and Judy show. But it was just one of those moments where I was like, oh yeah, they must clearly be able to see what they're doing. I sort of took that for granted sometimes.
They are definitely watching back on the monitor, and you see it with little moments like that where it feels like Janice is actually a real human who's just caught herself in the mirror on the monitor and is like, oh, I need to sort my hair real quick. Oh, sorry.
I think that was quite a clever moment actually, because like we said, when we've seen it before, where especially when we've seen like Rolf play on the piano, it's really intricate detail that you can really tell that the craft and the time and effort that goes into it is like really there. The
puppeteering felt really strong this week. I don't know if you guys felt the same, just on all levels, even as we got into, I mean, I won't jump ahead, but even the ballroom sketch didn't seem quite as chaotic this week. Like, everything just felt slightly more elevated.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought there was some really, really nice puppet work, and yes, again, we'll get into it, but particularly Frank Oz as Piggy in the talk spot, I just thought was hysterical and just really, really great. I'm not.
Yeah, put a pin in that, Jay. We'll get there. Because first we've got to take a visit to Charles's dressing room, where Hilda was delivering him a beautiful continental meal.
Hilda, wardrobe mistress and chef extraordinaire, apparently.
Yeah, I know. So this poor put-upon woman, I don't know. It made me suddenly wonder, like, oh wait, maybe she isn't the costume mistress as I assumed. And then they did introduce her later on as, and I was like, I knew it. I don't want to give away my MVMP too quickly, but the second that camera cut to that talking French bread, I almost fell clean off my chair. I was just, Peter and I were just...
I knew it. As soon as I saw that, I was like, Lewis is going to love this.
It was so cute. It was like the cutest thing I've ever seen. I didn't know whether I wanted to hug it or eat it. It was just...
I was the same. It was absolutely adorable. And with his little French accent and talking French, I was like, oh, yay! Charles has got a friend on the show.
And it was a really nice bit of backstage business using the host. And it felt a bit different because before, the most we've had is the host coming out of their dressing room to applause to head to their first number. But I think I actually preferred it this way round, where we saw the guest on stage first and then we got a bit of business with them backstage. It just felt a bit more organic. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely felt a lot less sort of set up than either those bits of backstage that you said about when, you know, when they've had the applause and them kind of swanning around in their dressing gown, or obviously those tiny little sketches with Sweetums or something where you've had one line kind of set up punchline. Even Juliet Prowse with the Muppet feather boa, you know, like it's essentially the same thing, but because it's set backstage and also because it's kind of set in the world of Charles Aznavour having a meal brought to him, it just worked, didn't it? It just totally worked.
Hang on a minute. Why didn't Swedish Chef bring him the food?
Well, there's the question, isn't it?
Maybe they thought it would just be too bizarre if we had like Swedish Chef plus talking. Because I suppose there haven't been any talking fruits or vegetables with Swedish Chef yet. He has just been cooking. Maybe they worried that it would make Swedish Chef look a bit more like a heartless murderer if he then sort of was bringing this bread to be eaten that he knew had a soul and a conscience. So they just gave it to Hilda.
Also, maybe just the double whammy of having Swedish Chef doing his and then the French like whoa.
Yeah, maybe they wouldn't have actually been able to get the setup across. It would have just been Charles having to listen to hooty goody pooty. Oh, you say you've brought me a French breakfast?
Bread?
But yeah, the French bread was... I want a plush toy of it. I want it on a t-shirt. I want a Funko Pop of it. Like, I don't know, branch out. Just give me all of the French bread merch. Just, I want it.
And I felt like, I don't know what you both thought, but I'd say this is the ballroom sketch that I've enjoyed the most so far.
Same. And can you also guess why?
Because it had a sentient banana in it.
Yay, the banana and the rat as well.
What a treat! I mean, I felt I was being fed today. I truly was just.
Even though it wasn't the shortest of the ballroom sketches that we've had so far, it had a real pace to it. I also, I mean, I really thoroughly enjoyed the banana and the rat. That was a really great little combo and pairing.
They were lovely.
And the gags were decent, you know. I mean, I don't know, maybe we just all love a banana pun, but appealing and make like a banana and split and everything, which is a joke.
Now, I've definitely made these jokes on the podcast and I got zip from either of you.
Yeah, but Lewis, you're not an adorable talking banana. I'm sorry, it's just different.
Exactly. And you know what? The gags with the appeal and split, they always make me think of Back to the Future.
Yes!
when George gets the gags wrong. No, sorry, not George. Oh no, it's not George, it's Biff. When Biff is like, I'm going to make like a tree and split, and then I'm going to make like a banana and leave, and then something else.
Yeah.
But every time I hear these gags, it just makes me think of that moment in the film.
I'm exactly the same, Emma. It's all I can think. But yeah, I mean, Banana and Rat were great. And Ginger Chorus Muppet Girl got her revenge on Animal.
Yeah, I loved that. I thought that was genius. The reversal of her saying, do you know what it's like to dance with you? And then doing it. But then also him obviously being over the moon that someone was doing 1, 2, 3 dip back to him. Animal was in his element. He was like, yes,
He was.
soulmate.
I think it was the best ballroom sketch we've had so far.
Definitely in my book. Not going as far as to say it was one of my highlights of the episode, but considering there were definitely moments in the episode I did not really enjoy, this was solid for me. This was totally solid.
Yeah. Jade, your mum's going to be overjoyed
She
that
is.
we've finally given a
Yay,
positive review to a
Tracy.
ballroom sketch. Come on, Tracy!
Shout out.
Just to put that in context, so I don't think we've talked about this on the show, my mum said to me the other day that she thoroughly disagrees with us about the ballroom sketch and that she really does enjoy the puns, but she did grow up watching the Muppet Show in the 70s, so you know that's just her sense of humour, to be perfectly honest. But yes, Mum, I liked this one.
Rather than our sophisticated 90s tastes. You know, us 6 and 7-year-olds sitting down to watch Frasier of an evening.
So there we go. We all enjoyed the ballroom sketch. That's the first time for everything, eh?
Isn't it? Now, can I guess, because I didn't do the research, but I assume one of you did. Were the Hick Muppets the UK spot for this week?
Yes, they
Emma,
were.
you can't just nod. You have to say it into the microphone.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. Why do we keep getting these Hick Muppets? Is it just because Jim Henson can play a banjo? I don't know, like...
I didn't mind this. At least it was quite sort of upbeat and, I mean, the song was just preposterous. Does your chewing gum lose its flavour on the bedpost overnight?
I think it sounded a bit filthy, to be honest. And also it just didn't end. They started doing the patter right at the end. It was like, "Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da," and then here's another joke that we're talking about, and here's a joke, and boop-a-doo. And here's it sounded like the end of the song, and here's another joke, and here we go again, and hoop-a-da-boo. And I was like, just end! Just finish! You stupid Hick Muppets. Just get it back in your pickup truck and go get Lana Del Rey and get the hell out of here. That's all I have to say on them. I'm done.
Emma, anything to add about the bumpkins?
No.
Right, let's move on then.
I feel like I should have a gavel, like, and then calls to the end of the discussion of the Hick Muppets. Moving along. Actually, to be honest, let's move along because it goes straight into the chat with Charles and Kermit wearing a gorgeous jacket. That double-breasted striped jacket was lovely. I really wanted one. Now, objective question to you both. Is Charles Aznavour an attractive man?
I mean, no.
No.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just keep my opinion to myself then, because... I don't know, girls. I just, during this little chat segment, I felt like Miss Piggy. I just felt this slight, like, je ne sais quoi.
It was just the French
It's the
accent,
French
Lewis. That was
accent.
all it was.
But he's so relaxed, and I don't know, from that angle and maybe the jacket, I got a vague attraction to him. Look, I'm just being honest, all right? The attraction disappeared when we got to the last number completely. But in this chat segment, I was with Miss Piggy, Charles Aznavour, like, Charles Aznavour. It should,
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
Look, it was working. I don't know why, but it did.
I understand. I do not find him attractive. I'm prefacing this with that. But I understand what you mean about he had a very relaxed, confident demeanour about him, which I can see the kind of appeal.
Yes. I don't mean like I would look at him on the street and be like, damn. I just mean like... Do you know, like, I'm not saying, like, I would look at him in a bar and be like, ooh, I'm going to talk to him.
Yes.
I meant, like, over this couple of minutes, I just found myself kind of attracted to him. Like, in that way that you sort of, you know, when you meet somebody, you're like, oh, I'm not sure how I feel about this person. And you slowly get charmed by them. You're like, what the hell is happening? Like, that's how I felt with Charles Aznavour.
He definitely did have charisma. Mm-hmm. I will give him that. Absolutely. And I think he was the ease with which in this setup he was playing with saying the number for the garbage dump and telling Miss Piggy that her transmission was broken and that she needed oil changing on her car and whatever, and the ease with which he was doing that in a very sort of flirtatious manner, and then flipping back and forth with Kermit, telling Kermit really what he was saying. I think it was charming, Lewis.
Thank you.
You're right. It was there was a charm to it, but it was also, I don't know, I did just find it very sort of 70s, I guess, with how he looked and his kind of older man persona.
There's nothing wrong with an older man, Jade.
No, I'm not saying there is anything wrong with an older man. I'm just saying that I personally didn't find him attractive.
Sorry, I just hit the table. I don't know how it's going to sound on the mic. Emma, no feelings at all for Charles Aznavour.
No.
Oh, you Philistines. You just don't get it. Like, but I tell you, Emma, how incredible was Miss Piggy in this segment?
Oh my goodness. She went crazy. She was like all over him. I think at one point she like oinked.
She did. She oinked again this week.
She oinked again.
Yeah, she did.
She just went full on crazy. She was hysterical. It was such a funny reaction. So over the top and so Piggy. It was really good and just so clever. Like the fact that you said you had obviously Charles, like you said, Jade, saying like the telephone number and then like this really random sentence and she's going absolutely nuts, and then you have him just saying what he said to Kermit, and it was just really good. Like,
it's
the
a perfect
interplay
setup.
was really fun. Yeah, it was a really good setup.
Jade, you were saying about the puppeteering.
Yeah, I mean, she was raunchy. She was quivering and she was panting. I mean,
It was
essentially orgasming. I mean,
she was. She was a wet-ass piggy. She was a wet-ass piggy this week.
She was a wet-ass piggy. 100% a wet-ass piggy. And I was just cracked up because I was like, you said it was full on Piggy, Emma, but I actually think this is like in the Disney sanitized world that we live in now. Piggy could not be that riled up.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like
she would not be climaxing. She would not be fully climaxing on a guest. Do you know what I mean? She'd give as good as she would get. Do you know what I mean? Like, so she would be flirting back with him. But this, like, when she was like panting and the hand went to her forehead and she was like shuddering.
She was pulling faces as well. Like, she was kind of like, I don't know whether it's the equivalent of like biting her lip or what, but her face was contorting as she was sort of shivering and quivering as she was panting. I mean, it was hilarious. It was really, really...
I'll have what she's having. Like, whatever. As it's clear, apparently I'll have a slice of Charles Aznavour. So.
With a little French bread on the side.
Oh, adorable.
I thought the puppeteering was absolutely phenomenal in this.
Yeah. And the finish where she came on and gave Kermit a proper hi-ya.
And then stamped on him after she'd hi-ya'd him as well, which was...
She just curb stomped him. Like, just like... It was fantastic.
He was rude. He did say, what was it? He said, one man's poison is another man's bacon. So she was totally within her rights to go and hi-ya and stomp him. Sure. Rude little bullfrog. Kermit's not having a good week.
He's a Taurus. It's a Taurus coming out in him. It must be something to do with Jupiter, just like coming in out of his.
Mercury was in retrograde or something.
That was it. Jesus, I was just chucking out a planet. Like Mars was in Hoopla.
Fifth house.
It's the dawning of the age of the Aquarius. I was trying to work out whether this was actually my favourite chat segment that we've had so far, because it was just... the only ones I could think that might have caused more of a reaction from me were Connie Stevens, but again, absolute filth. And then I think it might be my favourite chat segment, genuinely. And I think, again, that's why I really liked this episode so much. Like, no sketch, apart from the Hick Muppets to me, felt wasted.
Oh, categorically that's not how I feel. And I feel like the start of the episode was stronger than the back half, which we're obviously getting into now. The talk spot was definitely the highlight for me, absolutely. And I was really, really glad that we had it in there. But we can talk about it.
Well, we go backstage after this, and apparently Kermit the Frog hates drag, which to me is incongruous because I've seen him duet with RuPaul on at least 2 separate occasions. So this made absolutely no sense to me that he didn't like Gonzo and drag.
I think maybe in Kermit's mind it was just like the escalation of Gonzo's gone from hitting rocks and yelling art to now he's come out in this
female impersonation,
blonde wig and green dress and little orange bow. And
he looked like, you know when Drew Barrymore dresses up E.T.
Yeah.
in E.T.?
Oh my god, that is exactly what he looked like. You're right.
Oh, and then like, he's like, oh god. And he's like, Elliot.
He wants to call somebody.
Oh.
One of my favourite lines ever from any film.
Drew Barrymore.
You're right. That is exactly what Gonzo looked like. He looked like a little E.T. dressed up by Drew Barrymore.
Now, Hilda knew what was up when she was talking to Kermit because she very dismissively, when talking about Scooter, went, the nephew of the theatre owner? And I was like, yeah, Hilda, you know this is unfair because you've clearly been in this business for 50 plus years and you know about all this kind of entitled nepotism that goes on. You've just been squirreling away as a costume mistress / chef, and this little upstart comes in. She knew she did know. And as soon as I heard her say that, I was like, oh, Lewis is going to be all over this. I'm just finding people who also allay with my, is that the right word?
Align.
There are other people who align with my anti-Scooter POV.
Yeah, it was, I did question where it kind of came from. And then also because we didn't then see Gonzo on stage in drag, which was obviously what Kermit said he was going to do. He was like, okay, you can go on. It was an interesting escalation of the backstage runner without then, because then we did see Gonzo in the panel discussion, which is the next sketch. But he obviously was just in his normal busted outfit, not in drag.
Busted outfit. I was like, he had gelled hair and was wearing shorts? And he had a guitar?
And bad highlights. And he's been to the year 3000. I mean, Gonzo probably has been to the year 3000. I'm just going to put that out there.
That's probably where Gonzo's came
probably
from.
where he came from.
It's where he gets his ideas from. Now, I do not understand why you... Well, I'm speaking of Jade. I don't know, Emma, how you felt, but I really enjoyed this panel show this week.
Okay, so the question was meant to be, what is man's role in the universe? And to start with, I felt like Hilda was being quite wise. She was saying that it was something that man had contemplated for many a year. And then she started insulting Gonzo, saying that it was above his head. And then that led to the first bit of Gonzo nonsense, which was him ducking underneath the table. And essentially...
that was very cute, though.
I mean, he looked all right, but my problem with it is then what it then led to from there, with him hopping and with him trying to mallet the table and him malleting Sam the Eagle. I don't know, I just felt like it really... To come back to what you mentioned earlier, Lewis, about the puns, it felt very one note. It felt very just sort of on the nose. It didn't really seem to gel as a panel discussion. I found it weird that Mildred was there, but she didn't say anything until the very, very end. It was almost like she wasn't there at all. Also, when we've had the panel discussions before, we've always had the guest host involved, and I was curious as to why Charles wasn't involved. I don't know, honestly, I just didn't really enjoy it at all. I just found it a bit tedious. Yeah.
Emma, I would like to hear your opinion before I give my thoughts on the panel show.
I don't know. I kind of enjoyed Sam the Eagle. It was nice to see him again, like just having a bit of interaction and a bit of fun. Normally we only see him kind of like introducing Wayne and Wanda, or just popping up in kind of random bits. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of a bit on the fence on this one because it, like you said, Jade, it was quite like pun driven, and it was a bit odd that like Charles wasn't involved, because I think that would have been quite funny. He could have like played up like the French accent element of it again, or just like especially since, you know, we had Mildred dancing with him earlier on in the show. I think that could have led to something quite funny. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt like it kind of just slightly missed a mark there. But obviously, Lou, you've got a slightly different opinion.
See, I just really enjoyed it. I didn't even notice the lack of a Charles Aznavour, and I felt like all of the panel guests sort of did contribute something. And the fact that Gonzo took Hilda's insult of him literally played into what we'd seen of him earlier, and then just like was bringing up the anarchy and the chaos while they were trying to have this discussion. I agree, it was really nice to see Sam the Eagle. Although, how big did Sam the Eagle look in this panel discussion? He looked huge.
He's a big Muppet. He's a really big Muppet. Yeah.
He is, but I never really clock it properly. But like, he's a big boy. Like, I was like, good lord. Like, I wonder how wide his wings go. Like, it was crazy. But no, I mean, I just thought there was really nice, consistent character work, and Gonzo was being mad, and Sam like putting his head into his hands, being like, what are we doing here? And, you know, Hilda is still a bit malleable at the moment, so, you know, I didn't really mind her sort of being maybe a bit patronizing to Gonzo, particularly after she had seen he was attempting to like change his act via scooter, so maybe that's why she was being patronizing to him. And, you know, Mildred's little interjection, I didn't mind. I just really felt it was fun and a bit madcap, and I liked it. And oh no, that wasn't. Oh, hang on, I've just realised. Sam didn't say, what are we doing here? That was Kermit's thing of, oh, and next week we'll be discussing what are we doing here?
Yeah,
and I thought that was
here?
the great button, because it was like, oh, so the whole point was it was meant to descend into nonsense. But I found it enjoyable nonsense compared to some nonsense that we seem to get in other episodes, which feels so like 1970s bizarre kind of like boop kind of humor. Do you know what I was gonna say, do you know what I mean? But maybe you didn't, by me just making three noises. It was nonsense that made sense to me, and I just found it really fun, and I thought the interplay between the characters was good, and I found myself kind of bored at other panel discussions, both in and out of the Muppets, but this one I felt was engaging.
I mean, I feel like I've enjoyed most of the other ones. Like Ruth Buzzy's one was really good fun, and that descended into complete chaos.
See, I disagree. I found that one annoying, apart from her impressive yoga moves. I don't know. I just liked it.
It's all right. You're allowed to enjoy it.
And I did. I can find Charles Aznavour charming, and I can find a panel show engaging. I also thought that this was the perfect amount of Fozzie Bear as he currently exists for an episode of The Muppet Show. Emma, what did you think of Fozzie's stand-up this week?
Yeah, I thought it was really good, actually. I really thought his like interplay with Statler and Waldorf was really funny, and the fact that they kept like jumping in to like end his jokes, and he was just getting like frustrated, and they were like, ha ha ha. He was like, please don't stop. And I just thought it was probably like one of the strongest Fozzie comedy act endings of a show that we've seen for like a long time. I think it was, he tried to do his gags, and then obviously Statler and Waldorf kind of jumped in, and then they started just telling the ends of the gags before he even got a chance to say anything. And I just thought it was quite a clever and quite like a good kind of like difference to what we normally see from Fozzie, because like sometimes it can be a bit flat, and then that flattens the end of the episode. So yeah, no, I thought it was a really good Fozzie sketch this week.
Jade, what did you think?
I didn't not enjoy it, and I totally get what you're saying, Emma, and hearing you say it makes me think that, I don't know, I didn't feel like there was something quite working with when Statler and Waldorf took over. I could see that was happening. I understood that was what was happening. But I don't know if there was something lacking in Fozzie's response to it that made it not quite land in exactly the way that I don't know if it almost felt a little bit rushed to me, the way that the sketch kind of ended. It just didn't quite 100% work for me. I totally think that this is, in terms of the Fozzie, Statler and Waldorf interplay, I think we're certainly getting there. It feels better than it has in previous episodes, and he's not as
much of a sad sack.
Yes, yeah, he's trying to give back, as much as he's getting from them, and it feels like they're on a slightly more even footing. I don't know, I'm not sure if it's just that it still felt like Fozzie, because Fozzie was still saying like, oh, I've got one up on you, when he obviously didn't. But then something didn't quite click for me with this either. And I think off the back of the panel discussion, which, as I've just said, I didn't really enjoy at all. I don't know, I was just a little bit disappointed that it didn't seem to be, like, for me, the comedy and the humour wasn't quite hitting the right notes. Lewis, what did you make of it?
For me, it was a combination of, much like Emma said, I like that Fozzie wasn't as much of a sad sack or so lame. But then the twist on the end of this kind of weekly setup where this week Statler and Waldorf just started doing the material, I felt was an interesting turn for it, because we haven't seen that yet. And I can see what you mean, that perhaps maybe it didn't land fully, but compared to other weeks where the entire sketch doesn't land for me, I found this a better version. Because some weeks it literally is Fozzie comes out with bad jokes, Statler and Waldorf's comebacks and zingers aren't particularly strong either, and we're just sort of stuck in what feels like 2 minutes of dead air. Whereas this, the jokes that both were trying to give were good, and yes, maybe the narrative of the 2.5 minute sketch itself didn't fully stick the landing, but I found it much more engaging from a character perspective, and, you know, on some jokes as well. I thought some of those were actually pretty good. So yeah, I can take your point, Jade, but I think this was just a better use of Fozzie and Statler and Waldorf's moment in the episode this week.
Actually, now you've said that, that's made me think that idea of them being the ones that take over from the jokes, they just didn't, as you said, stick that landing quite well enough for me. There was like... It
wasn't a very clear transition.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear that was what was going on, but it wasn't heightened to make it the full comedic impact of what that could have been. I don't know, there could have been a bit of like shushing Fozzie and telling him that it was their time or something, or like, you know, like, oh, we're...
Have a spotlight fall onto them or something.
Yeah, just something making it that much more comedic and humorous that they'd stolen the show from Fozzie.
We get the finish of the runner just after Statler and Waldorf, and I have to say, perhaps maybe one of the strongest puns I think we've had on the Muppet Show so far. He ate the contract. I hope it wasn't binding.
It was very good. I enjoyed
gold.
It a lot.
Absolute gold. I'm like, that's going into my repertoire. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's one I'm just going to keep in the little Joan Rivers joke boxes inside my head to just try and like pull out at any possible occasion. Although I don't know what contracts I'm going to be signing where I then try and eat. Anyway, I will find a way. But I just thought Peter and I burst out laughing at that one. We're just like, good pun, good pun.
It also just feels like a pun that would still be made today.
Yes.
Rather than a lot of them that feel very dated. That could turn up on any show right now and no one would bat an eyelid, would they?
Frasier could say that to... Emma, what's the name of the dog in Frasier?
Eddie.
Like, Eddie would eat a contract of Frasier's and he'd be like, well, I hope it wasn't binding. He would. It was great. And it gave the runner a very solid beginning, middle, end.
Yes.
Gonzo is trying to find new management. Middle, Scooter is now his manager and he's trying out being in drag. Finish, Scooter is no longer Gonzo's manager because Gonzo ate the contract. But just clap hands, like we're done. Boom.
But also very sitcom in that you're exactly back where you started at the start of the episode. You know, you've gone through this runner, but nothing has actually changed other than we have had a little bit of character development for Gonzo.
It's a B plot. It's a solid B plot. Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Very satisfying.
Now, something that was very satisfying for Peter, and this, I have to actually bring back a segment called My Stupid Boyfriend.
Oh, no. It's called Did Peter Notice?
Did Peter notice? Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, because the stupid boyfriend this week was me.
Oh.
Because...
Did Lewis notice?
In the final song with Charles Aznavour, I, for the entire time, thought the song was called Each Word and not
Wow.
Inchworm.
Inchworm. Oh, Lewis.
There was a worm on his hand.
Yeah, I got that, Emma, but he was also singing outside of a school, okay? Like, I thought, they're learning something and maybe he's saying each word. Look, I said, oh, that was nice, but it was a bit weird. And he was like, oh, no, I loved it with the little inchworm. And I went, inchworm. Like, I was... So, yeah, my stupid boyfriend this week is me. And this was actually the only bit that I didn't mind this song. I found the child chorus entirely disturbing.
I found the entire thing very creepy. I was getting real Hansel and Gretel vibes from that school. And I found out that the Muppet who was the teacher who was in silhouette, her name is Zelda Rose. And I was slightly concerned about her, I'm not going to lie.
Why was her nose so phallic? Like, why?
I do not know. I was not on board with it. I did not enjoy it.
And the kind of sing-song horror movie, like, 4 plus 4 is 8. Yep. I was like, what?
It was very bizarre, I have to say. Like, the whole setup, the whole context, the whole, like, backstory, it was a very weird song.
Who is Charles in context to this school? Is he like a groundskeeper? Is he like Freddy Krueger to these children? Like,
it just didn't make any sense, especially because before that you had Kermit say to Scooter, get everyone ready for the final number. And then it's a weird silhouette, like, school, and, like, there's not really, apart from the worm, you can't see anyone else. It doesn't make sense.
Did either of you get a vibe of, where the tree and these sort of stuck-in plastic flowers and the backdrop gave me really severe Wizard of Oz on the Yellow Brick Road vibes? When I get into the kind of more foresty bit and you get, like, maybe 7 trees and then it's a painted backdrop and some stuck-in flowers, it just gave me real...
Do you know what
vibes.
It also reminds me of? The original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. When they're in, like, inside and you've got the chocolate river and the weird, like, eatable plants room. And they're clearly, like, cardboard and it's like, tastes like candy.
Yeah, the one toadstool that you can scoop stuff out of and everything else is just probably asbestos.
I was so disturbed by this. I found it very, very creepy. The children singing the arithmetic and then whatever he was singing about the inchworm and the marigolds and whatever, like the whole thing, I just honestly thought we were about to launch into some Jordan Peele nightmare inverted world where like the children were going to come out and they were actually going to be, your doppelgangers or something. I mean, I was freaked out and I just could not get on board with it at all. The inchworm little Muppet was quite clever. It was, it was moving its little head around. It
nuzzled the palm of his hand.
It was nuzzling. It was inching along, but not enough for me to be unscathed by this. I genuinely think I'm probably going to be having nightmares about this. And yeah, I was not a fan.
To be fair, I did write in my notes, I am no longer attracted to Charles.
That's one of your shorter crushes there, Lewis, eh? A whole 10 minutes.
That's been shorter. I think it was the combination of the song, the backing singers, and actually his horrible peach shirt that he was wearing. It was a really ugly shirt. Yeah, I mean, I can't defend this one. I've defended a lot of this episode, but this was a no-hoper. It was trying to do that kind of sincere Muppet number, like the way that Sandy Duncan ended her episode. But this just went past sincere, past syrupy into sinister. Ooh, that was a lot of alliteration there. Kudos, Lewis.
No, it was totally sinister. Yeah. It was
alarming.
So it's a Danny Kaye song that he sang in the Hans Christian Andersen film. I do not know the song, but apparently lots of people have covered it and it's considered like a bit of a classic, but not in my book. Not in my book. Also, just so you both know, it's coming back. When Danny Kaye comes to the Muppet Show, he performs it, and I believe Charles Aznavour comes back to do it again. Friggin' loved it, did Charles Aznavour? Loved it.
We can never escape.
No, not until at least season 3. We're going to watch it again. But I think it's different. But yes,
we're going to be held in our chairs by those Muppet humans, just like us struggling with like our mouths tied by gags while Charles Aznavour and Danny Kaye like slowly bring the inchworm towards us.
So, yes, again, all in all, the back half and everything essentially after the talk spot to me was sadly lacking.
Now, hang on. At the very last moment, at the goodbyes, Charles came on with a fabulous jacket.
No, Lewis, that jacket was hideous.
No, it was gorgeous. Emma,
It was
what did you
hideous.
To be honest, I don't remember the jacket.
It was hideous.
No, it was... I would buy that in a second. I'd buy the full suit of that jacket.
No, Lewis, no.
I love a bold suit. I love it. It's one of the reasons I'm gutted Top Matters clothes, because where am I going to get my ugly, gorgeous suits from?
There's bold, and then there's like, I don't even know what. I didn't even really fully know how to describe it, other than I wrote down Charles Aznavour in crazy, that's underlined, red purple jacket.
I loved it. It was like a sort of bit tie-dye, a bit kind of like... I loved it. I thought it was great. But then we get a gorgeous jacket and the return of the French bread. And I was like, yay, episode saved.
I liked that he said that he'd made friends with the French bread. That made me happy.
I hope he got to keep that puppet.
Well, because he didn't get a little mini Charles Aznavour Muppet, so instead he got the French bread.
Exactly, you know. Oh. Well, I am going to be very interested to see how we each individually rate this episode. But before that, we have to do our most valued Muppet performer. Emma, who was your MVMP for the week?
Well, I did have to think about this a little bit this week, and to be honest, there were a couple that I was going to choose, but then I thought you were probably going to choose them. So I decided to go for Mildred purely because her little dance with Charles whilst he's singing the old-fashioned way, she just goes for it. She's like, this is my time to shine. I'm going to dance. I'm going to love it. She's clearly having the time of her life. And she kind of reminds me of like, you know, when you see those films or TV shows where it's like the librarian and then they make her over and then she goes to like... the club or something and like meets her future husband. It had that kind of vibe and I love that vibe. So yeah, that's essentially my life. So yeah. It's like
Emma, you are not a spinster librarian.
No, it reminds me of like Baby Mama when she like dresses her up and they go clubbing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, my MVMP for this week is Mildred.
I was just going to say, I think we must all acknowledge that Mildred's redemption in this episode, from being somebody whose presence we always resented every time a ballroom sketch would start. I'd see her and I'd be like, oh Christ, it's a ballroom sketch, to... in 1 week, becoming your MVMP, Emma. I mean, that's the kind of character growth we all dream of, frankly. Like, that it just takes 26 minutes to turn people around.
Meteoric rise to fame of Mildred.
Yes.
A star is born! I just wanted it noted. Anyway, Jade, who was your MVMP for the week?
Well, I'm pretty sure we've gone with the same one, Lewis, because I went with the French bread. Because I just... I think there was some good work going on with Gonzo and Piggy, and there were moments, and I did consider Mildred as well, Emma, because the same as you, I was like, this is the first time we've obviously seen her kind of come into her own and not just be a dancing Muppet. But the French bread was just adorable, and I loved it, and that and Gonzo smashing the rock and saying art were definitely my two favourite moments of the whole episode. So I was like, yay, French bread. Just so cute. As I just said a second ago, I'm very glad that Charles made a friend when he came to the Muppet Show. Like, what more could you possibly want? So, Lewis, who's your MVMP?
Scooter. No, of course. Of course it's French bread. I did almost wonder that it might be Miss Piggy, because I know I said previously that I'm waiting for Piggy to be the Miss Piggy that I know and love. But actually, this Miss Piggy was so horny that actually that was kind of unrecognisable as well. So, well, but it's still fabulous. So, of course, I'm choosing the sentient carb, like with a funny accent. French bread. I really, really hope they make a return. I don't know if they will, but then again, I didn't think the sentient banana would ever come back. And we've had 3 appearances of Sentient Banana. What a joy. What a time to be alive for talking food. I'm living. I'm being fed, as the kids say. The Muppet Show is serving and I'm being fed, and now I'm doing Vogue hands. Anyway, 28 years old. All right, let's do our ratings for the week. I'm very interested to see how this goes. And Jade, I'm going to go to you first. What would you give this episode?
I'm giving this episode 4.5 Hilda's ha-has.
What?
Lewis is in shock. There was half the episode that I just didn't really enjoy, so I'm giving the 4.5 to the majority of the half of the episode that I did solidly enjoy. Between the disturbing humanoid Muppets, the sinister inchworm, the frankly quite flat panel discussion, and then the Fozzie Bear sketch, which I just sort of was a bit like, meh. You know, I genuinely enjoyed a lot of the Gonzo stuff. I loved the French bread. I loved the talk spot. It just wasn't enough for me to really love this episode. Yeah, I just think they're still finding the characters, and they are getting there, but actually there wasn't enough of the kind of chaotic Muppet mayhem or enough of the really, really strong character development for me to fall in love with this episode in the way that I have definitely fallen in love with some of the other ones, even when, you know, there's been some other bits going on that we've not been 100% sure about. So 4.5 Hilda's ha-has. Emma, how about you? Where are you going with this week's episode?
Well, for this week, I decided to give it 5 out of 10 veterinarian hospitals. Hey! Purely because, you know, it's back and Dr. Bob made an appearance. Yeah, I felt like it was a very middle of the road episode. There were some really good bits, like the runner was very solid this week. There was some good character development. And like I said earlier on, like Mildred literally went to the stratosphere in this episode, quite frankly.
Emma's new icon, Mildred.
Mildred is an icon. But like the back end of the episode, like you said, Jade, I think it just kind of... Even though I did enjoy this like Fozzie comedy act with Statler and Waldorf, I just think the sort of like inchworm bit and like UK spot, and it just had its kind of like little weak points here and there throughout. So yeah, I think this week I'm going to give the episode 5 out of 10. And how about you, Lou?
Well, I am going to give the episode 6.5 adorable nuzzling inchworms out of 10. I take all the points you have made. There is some truly horrifying imagery in this episode. But the fact that I enjoyed the episode despite them means that the rest of this episode must be really strong. So, despite the fact we have that terrifying final song, despite the fact that we have those creepy human Muppets, despite the fact we have the hick Muppets, every single other bit of this episode really worked for me. On a character point of view, on a guest utilization point of view, on actual punchlines, on, you know, fun little one-off French bread. Like, you know, it just really worked. And had those other 3 sketches worked, I would have been putting it even higher. So this is me being measured. So 6.5 adorable nuzzling inchworms out of 10. This has been the first episode where we've really had mixed feelings. It's quite.
Yeah.
We've usually been quite uniform. I wonder how many more episodes like this we might get.
I still feel at this point it's really hard to tell, just because a lot of the times, I mean, you know, we've had some really great episodes like Connie Stevens and Rita Moreno, but then we've also had episodes where, you know, like Joel Grey that none of us have really enjoyed. I feel like they still haven't found their kind of rhythm fully, so it's hard to know, you know, whether or not this is a one-off, that we're not all on the same page, or whether it is the case that actually, because they're still finding their footing, there are going to be more episodes that one of us really enjoys and the others don't, or 2 enjoy and 1 don't, or whatever. So yeah, time will tell, I suppose.
Time will tell. Je ne regrette rien. La vie en rose. Jade, why don't you close us out with a little Muppet philosophy?
Yes, I will do. So this is taken from Jim Henson, the biography by Brian J. Jones, and it's a little segment which starts with a quote from Bernie Brillstein, who was Henson's agent, and then it goes on. I'm just going to read a little segment, and it goes on to talk about an anecdote from Brian Henson, both talking, of course, about the wonderful Jim Henson. So Brillstein said, He was grand in this strange, quiet way. His love was unbounded. And then the book continues. Jim's faith in his fellow man was unbounded too. Jim rarely, if ever, locked his car, and if anything were ever stolen, he would simply shrug and say, someone must have needed it. Even after his wallet was stolen from the front seat of his Jaguar, yet another in a long line of flashy cars, Jim refused to get angry. Instead, he saw it as another teachable moment, and Brian Henson remembered his father launching into a mock sermon at the breakfast table, speaking in inflated tones on the value of forgiveness. My car was broken into and things were stolen, Jim told his family, speaking in the voice he would always use for his most self-important characters. But I realise I have a very wonderful life, I have plenty of money, and whoever it was who stole my wallet needs it more than me, so I find it in my heart to forgive them. While their father might make fun of himself a little bit at these moments, said Brian, his intention was to teach a lesson.
It's lovely.
Jim Henson on the power of forgiveness there.
Yes, and the idleness of the rich. Thank you so much for listening to Muppetsational. Not idleness, it's just the, well, of course it's not a problem for him. He's got a freaking Jaguar. God's sake. Thank you so much for listening to Muppetsational. If you've enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate and review, as it really helps spread the word about the podcast. You can follow us on social media. We are at Muppetsational on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. You can contact us at hiho@muppetspodcast.com, and you can find out more about us and the podcast at muppetspodcast.com. Thank you so much. Oh, merci for joining us this week. Nope, don't remember anything else. I'm Ben Lewis Chandler.
Sorry, I thought you were going to keep talking then. I've been Jade Turner. I was waiting for some more French to come out, to be perfectly honest with you.
And I've been Emma Chandler, and I'm not going to attempt any French, so there we go.
We can't speak French, so we'll let the funky music that's playing do the talking. Goodbye, everybody. See you next week on Muppetsational.
Bye.
Bye.
Our theme music is Peppy Pepe by Kevin MacLeod, and our artwork is designed by Charlotte Rudge, who you can follow at Charlie_R_Rudge on Instagram.